Yes, it's your boy IQ MMA, and we're back again with another video. So today, we're going to have a look at Jake Paul. Last week it was announced that Jake Paul is going to be booked to face former MMA champion Ben Askren in a boxing match. Okay, so we can see that Jake Paul is 2-0 as a boxer. Is he a good boxer? We're going to let the pause kind of speak for itself there. When we have a look at Jake Paul's record, we can see that he's fought twice. So he fought against a guy called Alison Gibb, and he fought against Nate Robinson. I believe he was a basketball player. And not Logan. I need to put some respect on this guy's name. So Jake Paul, he won by TKO and KO in both of his boxing fights. He's not really had much of an amateur background. If I'm not mistaken, he fought Deji, KSI's brother, in their amateur fight. So the first time KSI and Logan Paul fought, I'm pretty sure Deji and Logan Paul fought on that same card. Please correct me if I'm wrong with that in the comments. But yeah, so let's say he's only had 3 boxing fights in his, kind of his stint, his run as a boxer. I'm going to compare that experience to Mr. Funky himself. Okay, Mr. Ben Askren, former Olympian, former Team USA wrestler. If I'm not mistaken, I believe he was the captain of the team. I could be wrong. Actually, no, I think I am wrong. I believe that Daniel Cormier might have been the captain during his time on the team. When you have a look at Ben Askren's record, you can see that Ben Askren actually went undefeated for a long period of time. So he made his MMA debut in 2009, and up until 2019, he had his infamous flying knee knockout to Jorge Masvidal. So he was the recipient of that knockout, and with that fight against Jorge Masvidal and against Damian Maia, it's a bit sad that he's been made into a bit of a meme and a bit of a joke. He's not really taken so serious, whereas before he entered the UFC, Ben Askren was like, in the GOAT conversation for welterweight fighters within MMA, just due to his dominant fashion. With a lot of his opponents, he was pretty much able to take them down within the first minute or two and beat them up on the ground. And if he didn't beat them up, my guy was the king of lay and pray. So he did that really well too. He didn't really strike in his fights. He didn't really use much boxing or kickboxing, but boxing for this particular occasion. He fought 2 very dangerous guys in the form of Douglas Lima. So Douglas Lima is considered one of the best in the Bellator welterweight division right now. And he also fought Andrei Korshkov, again a very dangerous opponent within the welterweight division. And Ben Askren was able to beat them both. Of course, in MMA, Ben Askren is able to use his bread and butter, and he's able to wrestle guys to the ground and implement his will and ability onto them. However, this is going to be a boxing match. It's going to be a boxing match. It's going to be in for a fight where he's going to need to strike. Recommendation for you guys, I'd recommend that you guys watch Ben Askren versus Damian Maia, so the last fight of his MMA career. And I want you guys to have a look at the exchanges between Damian Maia and Ben Askren. And just bear in mind that Damian Maia is one of the best grapplers in the history of the UFC, one of the best jiu-jitsu practitioners, I should say. So Damian Maia isn't really a striker either, but I want you guys just to have a look at that fight and have a look at some of the boxing exchanges in that fight, and let me know what you think about the striking level. what I'm hoping, or what I'm guessing you'll see if you have a bit of an understanding of MMA, is that Ben Askren's level of striking is really low. Okay, Ben Askren's level of striking is extremely low. So I'm gonna go on a whim and say that Ben Askren versus Jake Paul, it might actually be an equal matchup, considering the fact that Jake's had, you know, the tiniest fraction of experience compared to Ben Askren in regards to combat experience. One thing I think that is quite interesting and it kind of shows the state of boxing in the world is I have a look at some of these pay-per-view records over the past couple of years, like some of the best, well, like in regards to finances and money, some of the highest grossing pay-per-views over the past couple of years. And one of them is quite recent. So you have a look at your Mike Tyson versus Roy Jones Jr., okay, which kind of with inflation, the revenue was expected to be around $80 million. And the reason why I'm telling you that is because Jake Paul was featured on this card. Okay, so 80 million gross pay-per-view buys with inflation. It's also the same without inflation as well. So I just want you to think about that, and I want you to have a look at boxing in general over the past few years. So you have an event like Anthony Joshua, Alexander Povetkin. You have an event like Anthony Joshua versus Joseph Barker, the Klitschko fight. You've got many events over here, and it's quite scary to think that Mike Tyson versus Roy Jones Jr. could do those numbers in pay-per-view buys. Don't get me wrong, Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr. were the headliners, and that, you know, obviously had a huge influence on the pay-per-view buys. But I think it's important to look at the role that Jake Paul had on this pay-per-view, considering I believe the pay-per-view was actually on Triller. So it was on a new kind of platform that is kind of targeted towards your Gen Z and your millennials. A lot of people that are fans of Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr., they are, you know, people who are kind of a bit older, people who were born in the 70s and in the 80s. People of that age were the people that saw Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr. compete within their prime. So I think kind of having a fight like that on Triller and having $80 million worth of revenue, you do need to give some testament to Jake Paul. And it's not Jake, it's his brother Logan. But when you have a look at Logan Paul versus KSI, you can see that there was $16.5 million in revenue that was made. Okay, not Logan, but his brother was the, his brother did help to sell that pay-per-view and rake it in with buyers, getting 16.5 million buyers, and that is a crazy number for both of them, for two guys that don't really box. It's quite scary to say. Imagine when these guys get a bit more of a following within the boxing world and get a bit more experience. Guys like Logan Paul, KSI, and Jake Paul could really be setting records within boxing. Imagine that. So let me know what you think, guys. What do you think of Jake Paul versus Logan Paul? Do you think it's a bad matchup? Do you think it's a good matchup? Who do you think will win? I'm sure over the up and coming weeks, I'll be having more conversations about Jake Paul and Ben Askren and how this fight will play out. So please let me know in the comments. It's your boy IQ MMA, and I am done. Oos.